In today's tutorial, I'll be teaching you on how to cut and sew this beautiful simple shift gown with ruffles and puff sleeve. If this is what you're interested in learning, keep on watching and let's get started. For this dress, I made use of 2 yards of crepe. I'm going to be folding my fabric into 4 because I'll be cutting out both the front and the back together. This gown is not going to be having a zipper. So I folded with the biggest part of my body measurement, which is the hip circumference plus some inches, because this is a loose gown, shift gown, and you want to make it very free on the body. Now I've gone ahead to mark out my starting point, and from the starting point I'm going to mark down to my bust point 11 inches. Now after this, I'm going to mark down to my waist point 17 inches. And then equally from here, I'm going to mark down to my hip point 26 inches. Now please guys, the length of this gown, the full length of my gown is 41 inches, okay? But we are going to be cutting out just the upper part for now. As time goes on, as we go on with this tutorial, we are going to cut the lower part, which is the ruffle part, okay? So I've marked down the 26 inches for my hip point, and then for the length of the upper part, I extended it by 3 inches, which made it 29 inches, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and square up my lines across, just like you can see me doing like this. So now I'm going to go back to the upper part, which is the shoulder line, and I'm going to divide my shoulder measurement into 2 and then mark it down, plus ½ an inch for shoulder sewing allowance. From that point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, and I'm going to divide my bust circumference by 6 and add 1.5 inches for the chest line, okay? So now that we have our chest line, we're going to connect it to the shoulder slope. Now after this, I'm going to mark out my neck width and my neck depth. So for the back neck width and the neck depth, I'll be using 3.5 inches by 1 inch. And then for the front neck depth, I'll be making use of 4 inches. So I've marked it out both together and I'm going to connect it, okay? Remember, we are cutting both the front and the back together. So I've just marked out the back neckline and equally the front neckline. Remember that for the front width, it is going to be the same with the back width, but the depth is just what makes them different. Now I'm going to come over to the bust point, divide my bust circumference by 4, and I'll be adding 1 inch for ease allowance and then 1 inch for sewing allowance, so making it 2 inches. Now I'm going to divide my armhole depth into 2, mark out the middle, and then go in by ½ an inch just to connect my front armhole. Once I was done with this, next step, I'm going to connect my shoulder slope into the neck width, and then I'll move over to the waistline, divide my waist circumference by 4 and add my ease allowance and then the sewing allowance. So I didn't touch the bust point because whatever it is I have on the chest line is what I will automatically have on the bust point, okay? Now after the waist, I'm going to move over to the hip, divide my hip circumference by 4, add my 2 inches for ease and then for sewing allowance. Now whatever it is I have on this hip line, I'm going to extend it down to the length, okay? And then I'm going to connect all these points together. So guys, as you can see, we are done drafting out both the front and the back. Next, I'm going to add up my shoulder sewing allowance of ½ an inch, okay? After adding it, I'm going to use my straight ruler to connect the points together, and then you guys, we're going to have to cut this out. To cut out, I'm going to first of all cut out the back. So as you can see, I went ahead to cut out the back neckline, cut out the shoulder seam allowance, and now I'm going to follow the back armhole to cut out. You can see I didn't touch the front armhole. All right, and then after that I'm going to cut out the sides. Now that I'm done cutting out the back, I'm going to have to remove the back so that we can cut out the front neckline. So I'm going to have to cut out my front neckline now. And then you guys, that is it for the upper part of this gown, okay? And you can see right now I'm trying to cut out my front armhole. So you can see that this is actually very easy to draft out. All right, now I'm going to open it up and then place in my back to this front, okay, so that we join the shoulders together. And while doing this, I make sure that the right sides are facing each other. After joining the shoulder, I'm going to equally join the side seams, and then I'm going to use this bias to turn the neckline. If you don't want to use a bias to turn your neckline, go ahead and cut out a facing for this. You already know how to cut out a facing. All right, so guys, I am done doing this. I've turned the neckline. As you can see, it is looking so beautiful and very smooth. Okay, now this is what I have for the upper part of this gown. So you guys, it is time for us to cut out the down part, okay, which is where we are going to be inputting the ruffles. So guys, for the ruffles, I'm going to be measuring the down part of my upper part of this gown. As you can see, what I got there was 25, but remember that we have both the front and the back, so in total we have 50 inches. Okay, now I've gone ahead to cut out these pieces for my ruffles. Okay, the length is 11 inches, okay, plus my seam allowance, which made it 12 inches. Remember that the length of this gown is 41 inches. I hope you guys are understanding me. So but the wideness, which is the width, is 60 inches because crepe comes by 60, so I made total of that length of crepe. Okay, so now I'm going to be placing it so that you guys can understand what I am trying to explain here. You can see the upper part is 30 inches for now, and then to the length of the ruffles, which I'm going to be inputting, I have 41 inches. You can see. So now what I'm going to do is go join these two pieces together, because you can see I have two pieces together, 60 and 60 inches, so making it 120 inches. You guys, you need to have enough fabric so that your ruffles can be able to gather properly well. So you can see I'm trying to join them together. After joining, I will go right over to my sewing machine, use my loose stitch to gather and then fix it into my gown. You can see I am done fixing the down part. I've also gone ahead to hem the edges, okay, and this is what we have. Now you guys, it is time for us to fix in the sleeve. Our sleeve is a puffy sleeve, so first of all I'm going to measure to ensure that I have my shoulder measurements, okay, which is 16 inches, and yes, my shoulder is right in place. So next I'm going to measure my round armhole to get what I have. So right there I have 11 inches. So with this 11 inches, I'm going to be cutting out my sleeve. Remember, it is a puff sleeve, okay? So I'm going to be using this fabric to cut out my sleeve. Now I'm going to fold my fabric into two, just like this. So what I have here is length 60, okay, that is the length of my crepe, how the crepe comes, okay. So I went ahead to fold it into 4. I hope you guys are understanding me. So this part of the fabric is going to be the upper part, and then I'm going to take it down to the length of my sleeve, which is 16.5 inches, including my hemming allowance, okay. Now guys, after this I'm going to, from the upper part, mark down to my cap height, okay. But before that, I'm going to have to, because this is a puff sleeve, I totally forgot to come down by 2 inches, which I just did. Now from these 2 inches, I'm going to mark my cap height 4 inches, okay. Now these 2 inches will help us to have enough puffy effect right on our sleeve. I hope you understand. Now on this 4 inches mark, which is my cap height mark, I'm going to mark out my round sleeve, which is my round armhole divided by 2, okay, which is 11. So I went ahead to mark it and then connected it to the top of my sleeve. Now after this, I'm going to measure around where I want my sleeve to be, okay, and then divide it by 2. After dividing it by 2, I'm going to times whatever it is that I got by 3, because you know we need to add elastic so that it will gather very well. Okay, so for us to add elastic, we need to times whatever our measurement is by 3 or 2.5. But for this particular tutorial, I made use of 2.5. For the sleeve to be very full, you can make use of 3. Okay, so I went ahead to connect it to my underarm. Right now I'm trying to measure my armhole to ensure that I have 11 inches plus some inches. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. After cutting out the side, I will equally go ahead and cut out the down part, which is the hemline of the sleeve. And after this, I'll move over to my weaving machine to weave the down part. Okay, now you can either weave the down part and turn it with 1/2 inch, or you can go ahead and fold using 1 inch, that is half inch. That way you don't have to weave the down part. Okay, so I am done with this, and you guys, this is what the inside looks like. Now we are going to have to insert an elastic into this. You can see the way I'm trying to measure it this. So hold your elastic and try to pull your sleeve down part together. So whatever you have, go ahead and cut it out. Okay, or another way you can actually do this is by using the round sleeve measurements to cut out your elastic. Okay, so guys, now I'm going to move over to my sewing machine, and the first thing I'm going to do is to insert my elastic to this down part using my bodkin, or you can use your safety pin to do that. After that, I'll sew the side seam of my sleeve and fix this sleeve into the armhole of my dress. So guys, here is the final products of our dress. You can see how simple and how casual this is looking. I hope you guys find this tutorial helpful. If you do, give it a thumbs up. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.